Welcome to our Indigenous Hands broadcast again. I just wanted to have this conversational broadcast. Today, I decided to reflect on a few things. This is just a type of broadcast that is a little bit different from what we've been used to, that we've been bringing to you. You will recall that since the beginning of this year, we have been trending the topic linguistic diversity and multilingualism. And this is because we are in the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. It is a campaign that is championed by UNESCO, which is pretty much focused on the development, the promotion of the indigenous languages, spoken languages. Across the world, we know that there are languages that are considered minority, considered endangered, considered indigenous, endangered in the sense that these languages are at risk and for various different reasons. And UNESCO decided to chart a course to project and promote discussions around these languages in the internet space, if I may. But the campaign, the advocacy for the promotion of indigenous languages by UNESCO is focused more on the spoken languages. SDLE Indigenous Hands happens to be at the forefront of promoting the indigenous sign languages, especially those that are really at risk of dying. Many of these languages are found in Africa and in America too. We know that conventional sign languages are progressively making headways, spreading. Studies are being done on them, and a lot of scientific discourse is taking place about these languages. But the indigenous sign languages across several communities, they are not getting as much attention. People don't even know what you're talking about. This is a part of history that people seem to be very oblivious of, but at the same time also seem to know it all, like conclusively knowing that when you mention sign language, they know one or two sign languages in their head that they are familiar with. Others, of course, don't exist. So in the course of our work, we've come to the realization of the diversity of language. So it seems to be one of the disturbing issues that we have so far encountered in our work, knowing that the lack of knowledge is obviously there across different people in different disciplines, but at the same time, you do not know if you're dealing with a complete indifferent attitude towards our indigenous signing systems or if it is just ignorance. But whichever one it is, we made a choice to be part of the history by giving ourselves to continuing to sustain discussion about the sign languages in the international space. We have been doing this by projecting a lot of academic conference discussions, workshops. We run several different series, just like this one, and we get involved in a whole lot of discussions in linguistic study, projecting the indigenous sign languages, just to create that awareness, the full awareness that people are supposed to pay a little bit of attention to this community, to this linguistic heritage of different communities, the diversity of different linguistic communities in terms of dialects and different languages seems to be something that, instead of dividing them, binds them together. I want to bring the case of Nigeria here as a case study, and I want to discuss this in relation to the contemporary events and developments in Nigeria since after the current electioneering period. For those of you who are not in Nigeria or have not been following events, you may not know that this year 2023 Nigeria's general election is such that opened up a lot of existing tribal, ethnic, religious wounds. A lot of hate speeches, a lot of physical attacks happened, and all of these happened along tribal and religious lines. In Nigeria, we have several different tribal affiliations. We have several different linguistic affiliations. Nigeria is a country put together by the British Empire, the British colonists. Nigeria was put together in 1914. Before then, we had a people who were living apart, for the most cases in harmony, at least to the extent that we know historically. But after the years of colonialism, Nigeria was put together. Since after then, it has been series and series and series of civil unrest, ethnic violence, religious bigotry, especially during election times and in so many other times. But in this year's election, one of the things that started happening is seeing the young people in Nigeria coming together beyond all of these linguistic and tribal dichotomies. As a linguist, I was looking at it from this perspective of people who speak different languages that should divide them. People who have been living in an environment where linguistic and tribal affiliations have always divided them, are seeing this rather as a beautiful thing to come together. The diversity in the affiliation, linguistic affiliation, that have long been weaponized by politicians. Young people are coming together to see it as a thing that should unite them in one country called Nigeria. I have witnessed discussions in the line of linguistic affiliations where people who are given opportunities to come up, to speak up, recognizing their linguistic affiliations. I remember when we were growing up in secondary schools, we learned about different linguistic tongues in Nigeria, the Kanuris, the Nupe, the Tara, the Tiv. And for God's sake, it sounded a little bit strange. We didn't know where any of these linguistic communities existed. But it was beautiful for me to witnessed some discussions where people from these tribes, from these linguistic affiliations, came to speak, recognizing who they are, were being allowed to express in their tongues. And the beauty of it that when you hear from another person who speaks a different tongue than yours, but the same country, it was so fascinating, it was so beautiful. And come to think of it that these people were expressing themselves in a way of saying that we are here because we believe in this country, irrespective of linguistic affiliations, of our tribal affiliation. I know that one linguistic community that, of course, was always not represented is the sign language community, the deaf community, which of course is a unique kind of linguistic community. We know that. But in the midst of these different linguistic communities, spoken linguistic communities, you find these hidden signing communities in their affiliation. It is beautiful to see young Nigerians recognizing each different linguistic tongue, each different linguistic community, each different tongue, and seeing it as something that brings them together rather than something that sets them apart. One thing that was well agreed along the line of discussions was that politicians had explored this area for so long. And this is also similar to what is going on with the sign language community. In one of my last videos, talked about how sign language is used whenever there is a national broadcast for election. Who are they signing to? Who are they signing to? When after that, immediately after that, there's nothing that seems to represent the policy that favors the community to whom they were signing when they're making the broadcast. They are signing to a community member, a set of community members that they expect to understand the policies that surround the election and electioneering, selecting the leaders and being part of, citizen and contributing their franchise. But after that, that's the end of it. So there's a lot I'm going to be discussing that I've learned out of what has happened in this Nigeria's 2023 election. A lot that really touched me and keep touching me as they reveal how we regard ourselves by our tongue and how we look at the diversity of our tongues. But today I'm going to just wrap it up by saying I listened to and a man was speaking to his people, and he said there are three sets of people: the selfish, those that think about themselves and themselves alone; the tribal, those that cannot think beyond their tribes; and the universal citizens, those that think for the good of all. Our languages are engrafted in our identities. Our languages are our identities, spoken or signed. It is no different in the deaf situation. Sign language is the linguistic identity, the cultural identity of the deaf community. They sign because they are endowed with the capability of using their hands. Their language is rich. Their language is developed. In the case of developed language, they may be hidden under existing spoken language heritage. They are still a unique linguistic community. And under linguistic diversity, the sign language community is well recognized, except that they are marginalized. Linguistic diversity and multilingualism, as they concern the deaf community across the world, is something that we are concerned with and something that teaches us a lot. And I call on those in the front line of the advocacy for International Decade of Indigenous Languages to look in the direction of sign languages. I call on Nigerians particularly to see linguistic diversity as their unifying factor. Thank you for coming around again today. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for following us. And I will see you next week. Bye.